All right guys, me again, Lindsay here, and I am here to show you step 3 of our DIY craft kit instructions. So if you are doing one of our DIY craft kits, step 3 is stenciling. And stenciling has a couple of little steps in it, but I'm going to cover them all here. This could be your step 2. So our step 2 video is sanding. Sanding is completely optional, so if you skipped that, then you're here at stenciling. If you did sanding, then stenciling is your step 3. Either way, I'm going to show you how to get your lettering or design on your project. Okay, so there are 2 types of stencils that we have. Most of our stencils look like this. They're the blue stencils with the white letters or design. This is like 95% of our projects use this kind of stencil. We have just a couple of projects that use what I like to call a sticker stencil. And the sticker stencils look like this. They look like stickers. So in this case, your wording is white. In this case, the background is white. So the sticker stencil is a reverse of this. So most projects will use this. Some projects, like the beads and blocks, if you're making the little cubes, they're gonna get the sticker stencil. If you are making the small book stacks that look like this, like the little book stacks that come with the mini sign kit, those are going to have a sticker stencil. And then if you are making our large book stack, so we have like the actual real books where you can put like a family name or a phrase, those also have sticker stencils. So I will bring that up again, and I will show you the difference in the 2 stencils. Most of you will be using the blue ones though. Okay, so before you do any stenciling at all, you want to make sure that your board is base painted and dry. So whatever technique you did for your background, you just want to make sure that that is 100% dry. So this is the board that I'm going to be using. I'm making one of our brewery signs. So this is a 16 by 24 inch framed board. I did the background in black, obviously, and it is completely dry. My background is not totally perfect, but I know that I'm going to sand it a lot after the word, so I'm not too worried about it. So this background is dry, so dry to the touch. When I touch it, it's not tacky, it's not cold, it is completely dry. As a matter of fact, I painted this yesterday, so I know it's completely dry. The acrylic paint does dry really quickly, so if you're doing this all right now, I would say if you used a nice light coat, you probably need like 30 minutes for it to be super dry, maybe less if you have a smaller project. The mini signs dry really quickly. Either way, make sure it's dry to the touch, really dry, and you can always use a hairdryer to speed it up too. Okay, so I'm gonna take my sign, I'm just gonna push it off to the side, put it on this table behind me. So we don't need the sign right now, not yet. I'm gonna grab my stencil. I'm gonna start with this piece. Okay, so I've got my blue stencil here. Now, this step is the same for the blue and the sticker. So if you're doing a book stack or one of the sticker stencil projects like the beads or blocks or what have you, even if you have this stencil, this first step is the same. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is place the stencil down on the table, and I'm gonna angle my camera down so you can see. Okay, sorry, let me give you a closer view there. Perfect, okay. So I've got my stencil down here on the table, and the first thing you want to do is rub the stencil. It seems really strange and kind of counterintuitive to rub the stencil, but it's going to help in the next step. Okay, so I like to use, you can use like a credit card, there you go. You can use like a credit card or the back of a paintbrush or something to rub the stencil. So I like to use the back of any paintbrush, but a credit card or a ruler would probably be a little bit of a better tool, but I'm gonna go with this. And you're just going to rub over the stencil letter side up. So I'm just pressing over it. Like I said, this seems like a really silly thing to do, but it's going to help your stencil adhere to the top coat. Let me explain that. And if you have the sticker stencil, you're gonna do the same thing, just so you know. So let me just point out while you guys are rubbing that the stencil is 3 layers, okay? So you've got your blue is your actual stencil. That is the stencil, it's the blue. Then you have a white backing. So there's a grid on the back. So there's a white back, blue stencil, and then there is a clear layer on top. So think about it like a stencil sandwich. Your stencil is between the white back and the clear layer. Now the white back and the clear layer are just there to help you get your stencil onto your sign. So rubbing in this first step is helping that blue stick to the clear layer. Okay, so rubbing on the stencil here. Again, if you have the stickers, you're rubbing those too. And the stickers have the same thing. They have a white back, they have a clear layer, but then in between that are your letters. And rather than a stencil, your letters are stickers that are just gonna stick on there. So these do not get painted, whereas this one is going to get painted on. Okay, so rubbing first. I rubbed both of my stencils. Now we're going to peel off the white paper on the back. The white back comes off, okay? So imagine that your stencil is a sticker, which essentially it is a big sticker. We're going to peel off the white backing. Now I like to lay mine down on the flat surface, especially if you have, like you can see, I have a very large stencil with a lot of words. So I'm just laying it down on the table and I am rolling the white back off of the stencil, rolling it back. You do not want any blue pieces on this white. So if a piece comes up, that happens sometimes. Sometimes like the inside of the R or the inside of the A, or I can't believe that one came off so cleanly because it has so many letters, but sometimes you will get pieces that are stuck on here. If that happens, it's no big deal. You just press them right back down. The vinyl is more forgiving than it looks. So you really don't have to stress too much about losing your blue pieces. Just push them right back where they go. When you do that, your stencil is now sticky. So I'm gonna leave that stencil face down, okay? And I'm just gonna show you with the stickers that you do the same thing. And this brings up a quick point as well that you can cut your stencil. So you see I have 3 summers here. I'm gonna cut one of the summers off because I only need one at a time. So I'm cutting them apart. As long as you're not cutting the letters, so you can cut the area in between, then it's fine. And that is true with the blue one as well. If you didn't want to have to tackle this whole big piece, like you were like, oh man, getting this white part off of all of this seems like too much, you could cut it in half. So you could cut between any of the lines. That's totally fine as long as you don't cut through the letters. If you lay it on your sign, you feel like it's a little bit too big or you want to trim it down, you can cut any of the blue. So I'm just going to put that one to the side. And you're going to do the same thing if you have the stickers. You rub and you peel off the white. So let me just see. Sometimes that's tricky, especially if you don't have like fingernails. You should have a toothpick that comes in your kit though. And the toothpick can be really helpful for finding those little edges. So I'm just showing you the stickers, right? I'm peeling the white off the back. And now I have my summer with no white. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish the sticker one because I just wanna show you how the stickers work. So normally you're gonna put the stickers, like if you were doing a book, okay, I'll put them here. If you were doing one of the blocks that's supposed to be the little mini book stack, it goes on the edge. So you're gonna press your stickers on there, right? Because they're sticky now that the white part is gone. You're going to rub again, rub, 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 just like you did the first time, but this time, this rub is putting your stickers onto the wood. Sorry, blue stencil people, we will come right back to you. And then you're going to peel the clear coat off the top. So there is a clear coat. Find the edge, peel it carefully, roll it back, just like we did with the white part before. We're just rolling the clear coat back. If any of the little black stickers come up, just press them back down. Ta-da! Okay, so if you have a sticker stencil, that's it. You're done. There's no painting involved. You just moved the stickers from the little paper onto your wood. And that little book is done. Sorry about that. Okay. So now let's go back to the blue one. I've got the white backing off, and now this is sticky. So I'm gonna grab my sign again. I'm gonna bring it back over, and I'm gonna show you how to get this stencil onto your sign. So I wanna first make sure that my sign is completely dry and it's free of any kind of debris. So I'm wiping it off. I don't want any sanding dust on here. I don't wanna have any, I don't know, dust of any kind really. So I'm just sanding that off. Wiping it off with a paper towel. So if you did sand it, you really wanna make sure you get any dust off of there. Okay, now, my stencil is sticky, and I'm just gonna lay my stencil down approximately where I think that I want it to go on my sign. Now, I know that a lot of people get stressed about this part because you wanna make sure it's perfectly straight and even. And let me tell you, it's okay if it's not. I know you don't believe me, but it really is okay because you're making this by hand, okay? So it's going to be slightly imperfect, no matter how much of a perfectionist you are, and that is totally okay. It is handmade, made by you, not mass-produced, so it's going to have its own slight imperfection. Now you can, of course, break out a ruler and get your measurement perfect, but honestly, I find that once I lay it down, sometimes what I like to do is just stand away from it and take a look at it, okay? So I like to just put it back like this, move myself away from it, and see, does it look okay? Honestly, the goal is to make it aesthetically pleasing, right? So if you notice that something is really out of place when you stand back and look at it, fix it, because then it's out of place. If it looks good to you, when you stand back and look at it, you're probably good. Nothing jumps out at you, then you're good. All right, so once you decide where you want it, so notice that I can pick it up and move it around. Even though it's sticky, you can still pick it up and move it around a bit, okay? So you can reposition it until you get it about where you want it. And then once you've decided, you're ready to commit, you're gonna rub it again, just like we did the first time. Rubbing over the letters, letter side up, rub, rub, rub. Now, you are not trying to get out every single air bubble that might be on here. The air bubbles are okay. You're just trying to make the blue stick to the wood. So we are just trying to get the stencil stuck down on here. All right, after you give that a good rub, you want to find a corner where your clear coat is. And just like we did with the other stencil, right, we're just gonna roll the clear coat back. Now, I have a pretty involved stencil, a lot of words, a lot of lines. And I admit that I don't always do a good job on the rubbing step because, well, I tend to just like breeze through it. But if you notice, I'm kind of rubbing this as I go. So let's bring you closer to my work here. So rolling back the clear coat, not pulling up, okay? We're always rolling it back because if you pull it up, you're gonna pull the blue off. And we want the blue to stick. Everything blue stays down. So I am just rolling this back and I'm going slowly, working slowly. If there's a piece of blue that is coming up, I'm pressing it back down, okay? So I'm working slowly to roll back the clear. And if you get a certain area, like here, I'm like, I'm kind of stuck, I'm gonna go to a different part. Now, most of your projects don't have such lengthy, we actually do not offer this brewery sign as a DIY kit because it does have so many words, so much vinyl. So yours probably has a little bit of a simpler stencil, but it's kind of good then that I have this one that's more involved so you can kind of see. And so you can see how I do it because I think that this step makes people nervous. The vinyl is more forgiving than you think. So it is totally okay if a piece pops up, you can just press it right back down like a sticker. If you have one piece that just like won't stay down no matter what you do, that's okay. You can actually save that little piece and press it back down to where it needs to go later. So don't stress about that too much either. All right, so here we go. Here's a little blue piece right here on my E that has come up. So I'm just gonna push the clear coat. I'm rubbing that blue with my finger, just pressed him right back down. I was just like, nope, you are not coming up. And again, I'm rolling it back. So I do not want any of the blue to come up. There we go. Okay, inside of my C is coming up, rolling it back down, little press, no big deal. All right. So working at your own pace, just rubbing that stencil back on there. So the point here is just to get all of your stencil down onto your wood. And this clear coat is trash. You do not need it anymore. So it's okay if it crinkles up. It's even okay if you cut it. So let's say you had done half of this and you were like, oh man, I'm gonna get rid of all the stuff I've done. You can cut the clear coat as well. Okay, now that's trash and I just have this little corner left and I'm just gonna focus on that. So the more of these you do, the more you develop kind of your own strategies and techniques for working on them. All right, so hello again. I just wanted to show you. Ta-da. So my stencil is now on the wood here. Now, it's okay if there's air bubbles in the stencil, that's okay. But you do want to press around the edges of the letters. I want to make sure that's like pressed down really nicely, which will help prevent bleeding. So right around the edges where my paint is going to go, I want to make sure that that is adhering securely. Now, if you do have some areas where you're like, man, that is just not sticking down, that is okay. It happens, no big deal. And you can still prevent bleeding in that area if you're careful with the paint step, which I'm going to show you right now. All right, I think I'm good to go. Everything's pressed down on there. So now I'm gonna take you back down here to show you the painting. All right. Sorry, usually when I'm crafting, I'm not having to work in front of the camera. So I apologize for all my crazy angles. Okay, stencil step. You need your paint cup, whatever color you want your letters to be. I'm gonna go with white. Preferably a paper towel or even your scrap piece of white paper that we took off of your stencil, and a white makeup sponge, which should definitely be in your kit. All right, so I'm going to start here by dipping the square end of my makeup brush. So we've got the teeny tiny triangle point, and then we have like the big fat rectangle end. I'm holding the triangle point. I'm going to dip my rectangle part into my paint, and then I'm going to blot it off. So I'm using a paper towel here for my blotting, but you want to blot it off. You want to take a lot of the paint off. I do not want too much paint on this sponge. Then I'm going to my board here, and I'm going to go up and down over my stencil, dab, dab, dab. I'm only going up and down. I'm using light pressure. Now the thing here is that you are imagining, picture that you are trying to get the paint on top of the stencil. So you don't want to press it under, you're not trying to push really hard. You don't want the paint to seep. So you are sponge painting here, okay? Dabbing it off, getting more paint as needed, dabbing it off, and then we're going up and down. So you are sponge painting right over these letters. Now, depending on how dark your paint is and what color your background is, you might need 2 or 3 coats depending on what your end result is here. So this is a sign that I know I'm going to sand a lot. So it's going to be like really distressed looking when I'm done. So I will probably do like 1.5 coats because I'm okay with my letters not being totally solid because I'm going to sand them anyway. So if you're the kind of person where you sort of like that sort of like vintage vibe where it looks like your letters have kind of worn off a little bit, you will have less coats than somebody who is looking for a nice filled in bold look. Neither is wrong, neither is right. It's totally a matter of preference. So just a little bit of paint, just up and down. So if you have an area where it's not sticking well, if you take a very, very small amount of paint and just go up and down like this, the paint will help stick that area down. It will help secure it and prevent some bleeds for you, okay? If your paint coat is super light, so I don't know if you can see on the camera here, but my paint coat is splotchy. My letters are not all the way filled in. This first coat is just sealing my stencil down onto the board a little bit more. All right. So I'm just dabbing on there. Then once I'm finished with my first coat here, I'm gonna go back and hit it again because it is such a small amount of paint, it dries very quickly. And especially with me, I've got so many words that by the time I'm finished with this last L up here, the rest of my words are gonna be ready for their second coat. So I'm gonna do mine a little bit faster so you don't have to literally like watch me stencil this whole thing, watch my paint dry. I didn't consider that when picking my stencil. So a lot of stencil area for you guys to hang in there for. Dab, 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 up and down, not too much paint. The less paint that you use, the better your words are gonna turn out, the crisper they're going to be. It is way better to do 3 light coats than 1 heavy coat. All right, so I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna start at the bottom because that's where I started first, and I'm gonna go ahead and just hit it again. I'm gonna speed it up a bit because I would like to show you what it's like when you take off the stencil. I like to show you that in this video as well. So just dabbing again, just redoing what I already did. I'm still not using too much paint. I'm still keeping my paint coat really light. I'm still blotting off, still just going up and down, dab, dab, dab. Now remember I told you that I am okay with spots that are not all the way filled in because I know that I'm gonna sand this sign. I want this sign to look really vintage and rustic. So I'm okay with missing areas. If you're not okay with areas that are missed, if you're doing a light coat on top of a dark, I would suggest maybe hitting it one more time with a 3rd coat. If you're doing a dark, like black on top of a light, 2 coats is probably plenty, even if you're going for that like really bold look. Obviously, it's gonna take more coats of a light color on top of a dark color than vice versa, right? So here we go. All right. So after you finish your dabbing, however many layers that is, you do not have to wait for this to dry before you peel it up. Now, I usually just give it a second because I don't want it to be like really goopy. Like I don't want to get my hands all messy and then accidentally smear the sign. But kind of like painter's tape, it does not have to be 100% dry. You don't have to give it, you know, tons of dry time and then peel it up. So it's not like the base coat. The base coat, we wanted to wait for that to be dry, dry, dry. Stenciling, we're gonna pop these letters on and then we're gonna peel it off. And then you can check out my step 4, I believe, which is the touch-up step. And I go over fixing any areas where there was bleeding or where a letter maybe didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to. So that's another thing to remember in all of this. I should have mentioned that in the beginning with the stenciling. You really do not need to stress. Creativity is a process, right? And we're not gonna judge our piece every single step of the way. It's not done until it is done. So each step is literally that, just a step on the way to your creation. The nice thing about these DIY home kits is that you can take your time, right? You can take as long as you need to or want to complete your project and to work on it. A little bit different than when we were at a craft party and we have, you know, like a 2-hour time limit. So take your time, enjoy the steps, get this puppy looking the way that you want it to. And if you notice, I am actually hitting a couple of spots with a 3rd coat, just a light one. A couple of splotchy areas, and I'm just hitting them again. Okay, All right, so I think for my purposes, that is good enough to show you guys the reveal step. So now that you've done your stenciling and you see I just finished, right? You can wipe off your hands if you don't want to smear it. You're going to find a corner of the blue, and now you're just going to peel. I'm just taking this blue off. At this point, it's okay if the blue rips. We don't need it anymore, okay? We are done with it. Now that our letters are on our board, this is just trash. So we can just peel that off and let it go. All right. If you use a light amount of paint, your letters are going to be really clean. If you use too much paint, and that happens when it's like your first time, right? Everything is better with practice. So if it's your very first time and you use too much paint, you might see that you have some areas of bleeding and some seep going on. And you know what? That's totally okay. We have a whole video on how to touch those areas up and how to fix it up. All right. So do not stress. So as you're peeling, if you notice mistakes, keep working. Again, this is just a step in the process. All right, so if you notice on my board, I'm sure that you can see that I have areas where some vinyl didn't come up. So inside of my O and inside of my R, even here inside of my C, those are just pieces of vinyl that are still stuck. So if you see that, you did not ruin your project. That's just vinyl that is still stuck in there. Now, you guys should have a toothpick in your kit, and the toothpick can be used to help you find a corner on those areas and peel them up. And you want to try not to scratch your paint. So this is a part where, although you were able to peel the main blue before it dried, it would be helpful to wait for your letters to dry a little bit before you peel out these middle sections. But I'm just peeling out a couple of them to show you the difference that it makes in the sign. You did not ruin it. You just are still working on that step, right? You still have some vinyl in there. All right, so let me just show you where I'm at, just to give you an idea of how it's looking here, okay? All right, so here is my stenciled sign. Again, I still have some areas, right? I still have some areas of vinyl that need to be pulled. They need to be, actually the word is weeding, so we're weeding the vinyl. So there's still some areas that need to be pulled out. But I want to show you overall, my letters are on my board, and now I'm ready for sanding and touching up. All right, so happy crafting. Have fun with your stencil. Take your time. Don't stress about it. Remember that it's a process.